Dr. Catton, do you think that recent movements to relocalize in such areas as food production and work can help mitigate the coming collapse?
That's the best it can do, is to help mitigate it. It will not solve the problem. Someday the world will be inhabited by a smaller number of people who will be, perforce, more dependent upon local resources and less able to avail themselves of products manufactured or grown on the other side of the great ocean than we have become accustomed to in recent years. I don't know whether we're really contributing to the future very much if we abstain individually from buying kiwi fruit that's imported from New Zealand, or pineapples that are imported from China, or whatever. I guess that does save some expenditure of fuels, and that does contribute a minuscule amount to the reduction of the CO2 that we're putting into the atmosphere each year. And so it delays global warming a little bit, but a very little bit. It's a good idea to become somewhat more locally dependent than we have been, but it's not going to solve the problem. It's going to mitigate it somewhat.
Dr. Catton, one person who admires your work has said that you could be read as being deterministic or fatalistic. Do you in fact believe that human agency and political action can steer us in a new direction?
Human agency certainly is important. People do have the ability to make decisions to do this rather than that. The making of good decisions depends upon acquiring an adequate fund of relevant knowledge. I'm a determinist in the sense that I do believe in cause and effect. I don't believe that we make our decisions without any kind of causation at all. Am I a fatalist? No. Depends on how you define fatalism, for one thing. I think one very important contribution to our understanding of life was made by a sociologist I happen to disagree with to a considerable extent, C. Wright Mills of Columbia University. He wrote a book on the causes of World War III, in which he argued that it was a good question as to whether men make history or history makes men. That was back when we said men, and now we would say persons. But he defined fate in a very interesting way. And I don't think this is the best definition of all forms of fate, but it's a good definition of a particular form of fate. I would call it anthropogenic fate, which is a special version. He said fate happens when the results of innumerable individual decisions about other matters accumulate to produce an outcome nobody intended. And I think that's what's happening with respect to global warming and with the depletion of exhaustible resources and so on. Nobody intended to produce a carrying capacity deficit. But the decisions that many people made to move to a city or to start farming with a tractor instead of with a team of horses or oxen or whatever, the decision to buy a toothbrush and practice various forms of hygiene to prolong life. All of these things contributed to human longevity increasing and to human population increasing. And the repercussions of that we're now beginning to feel in the form of this carrying capacity deficit and the fact that there are too many of us and that not so many are going to be able to survive in the world of the future. Nobody intended that, but it's the product of innumerable decisions about other matters.
I hear you're working on a new book. Could you describe this for us?
Well, the book I'm currently writing I call Humanity's Impending Impasse, and if you want an idea of what it's about, The word impasse refers to coming up against an impenetrable obstacle that you can't overcome. And I'm saying that that's what's ahead of us in this century. That's why I call it the impending impasse. We haven't quite come to the dead end yet, but we can certainly begin to see that it's right there on the not very far distant horizon. And it's going to affect not just one country or a few countries. It's not going to affect just the industrial world. It's not going to affect just the inhabitants of industrial countries that I've come to call Homo colossus, because we've become so gigantic in our impact on a per capita basis. It's going to affect ordinary Homo sapiens. We are doing to our own habitat the kinds of things that we'd already done to the habitat of some other species that became endangered species because of well, we've caused the extinction of many other species by destroying the conditions in which they could live. And we've begun now approaching the time when we will see that we've been doing that to our own habitat. In that book, incidentally, I do clarify the distinctions between determinism and fate. And I also try to suggest that some of the cherished beliefs that we've had need to be regarded as beliefs in magic. And we know better than that. We know that magic is really illusion. I don't know whether the public is going to want to buy that book or not, but I will advise people to be forewarned that the decades ahead are not going to be as pleasant as some of the decades that we've just been through. There's a recent book that has achieved some publicity. The Last Lecture by, what's his name, Rausch? Yeah. Who, when he realized he had a terminal illness, decided to say what would be the final message that he would like to give to his fellow human beings. And in effect, as I understand it, I haven't read the book yet, but I've seen a lot of publicity about it. In effect, it seems to me what he was saying was, enjoy life. And I would say the same thing, that don't despair, even if we're living in desperate times. There's a lot of life to be lived and a lot of enjoyment to be had, and enjoy each other. Human beings are a marvelous species, even though we make some tremendous blunders. We make most of them innocently, and we should revel in the fact that we are this species with this brain up here, and with these hands that can, and with these eyes, and with these ears that can enjoy music and enjoy scenery and make fabulous things and do fabulous things. And let's enjoy what's left of it.